of the best ways to have a great homeschool day and to kind of put things on autopilot for yourself is to start streamlining or making habits that start streamlining your homeschooling day. Because I was in the classroom for so long, I picked up a lot of habits that some were good, some were bad. I'll say that. Some of my habits were probably not the best habits to have, but coming from a place where it was all that I knew, I had to go through that process of figuring out what works for homeschooling and what does not work for homeschooling, what is only for the classroom. And after a couple years, I really did figure that out. But I'm one of those people that I like school to run kind of like a well-oiled machine. I did the same thing when I was a classroom teacher, and it usually takes me a little while to figure that out. I feel like I have a really good flow, and it changes every couple of years because my kids get older, so their habits change and their needs change. So I really have to kind of tweak things as we go along, but that's totally okay. We've been able to really figure this out. So I'm going to share with you some of the habits that I have picked up that really kind of help streamline the process of our homeschooling day, and that really I don't know if I could homeschool without. Before I jump into those, my name is Mandy, and I share all kinds of things on this channel about homeschooling and curriculum and just about being a homemaker and a wife. If you want more of these types of videos, make sure that you hit the like and the subscribe button and you will get all the homeschool updates. Okay, so one of the habits that I'm going to talk about first is grading. Really keeping up with grading has helped me a lot, and I find that if I'm ever sick for a long period of time, like I got COVID a couple of years ago, and grading papers was the last thing on my mind. But I remember how overwhelmed I was when I didn't grade stuff for like 2 weeks. Now my kids never caught COVID, it was just me and my husband. But when we were out of commission, the kids were old enough that they could still do homeschooling really without me. They just needed the laptop to do some of their classes, and they went into the homeschool room and they got it done. And they really didn't get behind, and we still oversaw everything. But I wasn't grading a lot of the papers because I just could not. And I remember how overwhelmed I was when I finally got better, and I was like, oh my goodness, I have piles to do. So whatever your system of grading is, figure out what that is. I might talk about that in another video. If you like to grade the same day, if you like to grade at the end of the week, or however that is, don't get too far behind in grading. Find some kind of system that you can put on autopilot for yourself, and don't get too far behind. The next tip I have is not to be meticulous with homeschool planning. So I have a planner from Mardell that I use. I love my homeschool planner. Absolutely love my homeschool planner. The thing with the homeschool planning is that I am not meticulous. I don't like the homeschool planning for me to take more than 15 minutes for 2 children for all their subjects. So if I am really meticulous and I'm writing down like every single little jot and tittle that they're going to be doing, I will be at the table for 2 hours trying to figure all of that out. Rather, what I like to do is kind of streamline that process and give a general sense of what they're going to be doing, because really it's more of a record for me just in case I ever need it. Now, of course, abide by your state guidelines for stuff like this. We do not have a law that says that we need to keep like records and planners like that, but I know some states probably do. I think there is one state that I am thinking of that I do think has to do that. But again, check your state laws on hslda.org and see what your laws are, and of course abide by that. But for me, I don't have to do that, and I don't want to do that, so I kind of just keep it as simple as possible and just kind of streamline that for myself on the weekend. It's just a relaxing activity that I like to do. I don't like to make it a big thing, because if it is, then I'm gonna dread it. And if I ever get to like a point where I'm sick or something and I get behind in planning, I'm not gonna wanna do it. So just make it easy on yourself. Okay, I talk about this one a lot, but prepping the night before. If you prep the night before homeschooling, it makes it so much easier. And this was so much more so when the kids were little. When the kids were little, they had a lot more worksheets and things like that. So what I would do, I had one of those 10 drawer carts that stood about this high, and I would make one drawer for each subject, and I would have all of the papers for the week in there, and then I would double check it the night before. That little process did so much for me that we felt lost like a month in if I was sick and I didn't do it one time, or if I forgot, like if we were on vacation or something and I forgot to do that. The whole homeschool was chaos. It made my life so much easier to have that 10 drawer cart. I can't even tell you. Now, I recently just got rid of the 10 drawer cart when I decluttered these rooms because we don't use them anymore. I was just holding on to it for nostalgia reasons because we really loved our years with those carts. But man, it really helped when those kids were little. It really did. Now we just have everything in their workbooks that they do have, and we kind of just have them like right here on this little shelf, and they just pull it out and do it. They don't really need to, wait for me to give them page numbers or anything like that. They just know what to do. But when they were little, oh my goodness, that was the most helpful thing. And it really streamlined my homeschool. My youngest was in kindergarten, and we used them when my youngest was in, I want to say K through grade 3 or 4. And my oldest was in grades 4 through 6 or 7. I can't remember at what point we stopped using those, but we used it for a few years, and yeah, I absolutely loved that system. So one of the ways that I use my weekends is to get a little bit ahead. And one of the ways that I do that is by reading ahead with their books. So any books that we're doing for like family discussion or that we might be doing for literature, I definitely try to use the weekends to get ahead with that and read their chapters a little bit ahead of them. Right now, those classes would be this one here, the Worldviews in Conflict. I'm doing that for my 12th grader. And then that is the Generations book. And then this one is Titus, and that's also Generations. So that's their literature classes. The Titus book goes with the Generations literature for middle school. And my 8th grader is doing that book. We both really, really like Titus. We've been reading it since the beginning of the year. We're almost through Titus, and then we'll go into, I think, the Swiss Family Robinson. And this will be my first time through. I think this will be my child's 3rd time through that book. I know he really likes it, so I'm looking forward to reading it. I have the audiobook though. I bought the audiobook on Generations because they just started adding audiobooks on their website. So I'm going to do the audiobook on that one, and I'll probably just listen to it the night before while I'm making dinner. That's usually the easiest time for me to listen to an audiobook. Okay, I love the lab kits from Nature's Workshop Plus because they're a huge help with this next one, and that is making sure your science labs are all prepped. This started becoming a big problem for me pretty early on when our sciences started becoming more involved. For some reason, and I've told you guys this a lot, I just cannot remember science experiments. And a lot of times these things, even though there's stuff that like you would normally have around the house and that you can get at the grocery store, I just forget. Like I totally forget to put this stuff on the grocery list. I forget to look. So a lot of times what has saved me are lab kits from Nature's Workshop Plus. They have lab kits for all different kinds of science curriculum. I have the Apologia ones because we use Apologia. And actually it happened this week. Like we didn't have something that was not in his science kit. I think it was a paper clip of all things. Like it was like one paper clip, wax paper, and a paper towel roll. He needed a paper towel roll. We ended up getting a paper towel roll because we ran out of paper towels yesterday, but I did not have wax paper, and somehow we did find a paper clip. Like we have one paper clip in the entire house. I don't even know. And I still needed wax paper. So luckily today is my grocery day. So I put wax paper on the grocery list, but if I would have looked ahead, I would have already had it. So we had to push our lab to the following day so he would have it after I picked up the groceries. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, I just feel silly, you know? And if I had just prepped beforehand, this wouldn't have even happened, and we could have done things when we had the time, or when we were supposed to do it. But thankfully, when they are in elementary and middle school, they have flex days built into their Apologia schedule. And so we have that flex day to kind of help us out, but still, it was just super annoying. So my piece of advice is, as they get older and they have more complicated experiments with more things that you need around the house to do these experiments, look ahead and definitely look into those lab kits, because it actually saves you money in the long run, because the lab kits are less money than buying all those individual pieces. And trust me, I know, because I did it and I actually calculated it out. It's actually cheaper to buy the lab kits, even though it's an upfront cost. It's worth it, like 150% worth it. I would never want to do science, especially high school science, without a lab kit. And if you want one of those lab kits, if you want to look at the ones that I have, I'll leave the link down below and you can go check them out. The last one that I want to talk about is purging. Get rid of the books. Like, seriously, just get rid of the books. If you're not using it anymore, get rid of it. It has helped clear my mind so much to have this room like more empty, like to have more empty space. I had books everywhere. I've made a couple videos on this. Like, I just had books everywhere. I had, like, we were talking about putting like all along the top ceiling of our wall, like a couple feet below the ceiling, like bookshelves, like one long running bookshelf, because we just had so many books. And I was like, this is silly. We're not even using over half of these books. Like, I know we're not using at least 50%. And I was right. We were only using about 30% of the books in this room. And then I had books in other rooms. And I realized when I started going through these books that a lot of them were out of date, and there were new versions of these books out. So stuff that I was saving for my youngest child to passing down from my oldest to my youngest, there were already new versions of it out. So even if I save the textbook, it's not going to line up with the workbook that I get him to go with it when he's ready for that curriculum. So it's like, why am I doing this? Like, it's just silly. I'm taking up room in my already small house. So it makes no sense. So if your kids are not like seriously back to back, just get rid of the books. If they have an update for the book, get rid of it. They update curriculum books so often that it's really hard to keep books sometimes. I think I was just holding on to it because I was worried about losing money, but in the end, I'm gonna have to get the new ones anyway because there's new editions and nothing's gonna line up. So I feel like I didn't really do a whole lot of good for myself. The only way this would have worked is if I didn't use the workbook and I had the textbook. But most of them I didn't do that. My oldest already used the workbook and we kept the textbook, and I was just gonna buy a new workbook. But there's already an update to the textbook and there's new workbooks out that match the new textbook. So nothing's gonna line up. So it didn't work. My plan did not work. But some of them are still good. So some of them I did check, and most of them I actually got rid of. And there's some things on my shelf back here that actually I can pass down. Some of it I can't, and that's okay. And I will figure all that out by the time my oldest gets to that curriculum. But getting rid of it actually like calmed my mind a lot more than I realized. And now I wish I would have done this like 2 years ago. I should have done this a long time ago. So there's my tips and advice for streamlining your homeschooling process throughout the week. Those are just things that have really, really helped me as a new homeschooler, and as an experienced homeschooler, I still do these things. I could not get through my week without following those steps, and it's something that kind of is an autopilot thing for me now. But it took a little while to kind of hammer out the kinks on how to do all of that, and to figure out what we needed and what we don't need, and to figure out the process of doing each one of those things. So let me know, what do you do to streamline your homeschool with your family? I would love to hear that down below in the comments. I might be able to pick up some new tips. And because I love stuff like this. It's so helpful for me. So, you know, just to read you guys' comments, and some of these things I've picked up from you guys. So let me know down below what you guys do. I'll see you guys in the next video. I hope you have a great rest of your day and happy homeschooling.